I'm Andrea Thome, and I'm the playwright of Pinkolandia. Pinkolandia was part of the Crossing Borders Festival in 2012. Jerry Ruiz, who curates the festival, reached out to me and I submitted it, and I was delighted that they chose it. And we had a reading here with the same director, Jose Zayas, who is directing the production here, and actually some of the cast members, Annie Henk, Marina Ayala, Maria Lan. But since then, the play has had 2 productions, and this is one of a series of premieres. Each reading you do, it's sort of constantly growing and evolving, and then even though it's had two productions already, I'm tweaking things and changing things for this production. But each year over the last 3 years, they picked a play that, which I think the goal really is to get 4 theaters around the country to participate in the launching of this play. They thought about theaters they thought this play would be a good fit for, and they reached out to all these companies across the US, and then 4 were selected, and TWRU was one of them. It was definitely a company I was like, let's talk to TWRU because they're already, part of this. And Intar Theater in New York City was also one of the 4 theaters, and that's actually where I very, very first began writing the play as part of their Hispanic Playwrights in Residence Lab over several years there. And the other theaters are Salvage Vanguard in Austin, Texas, and 16th Street Theater in Chicago. But the really cool thing about this program is that each artistic director from each play comes to see each production in each of these 4 cities. So they've been getting to see the different versions. We have these convening, 2-day meetings around it. They get to meet the community there. They get to meet the artists in each community. It's a really cool process. So this is number 3, version 3 of this rolling premiere. Because my mom is Chilean, my dad grew up in Costa Rica in the US. His father was, North America. His father was a sailor from Philadelphia who was an orphan and jumped on a ship and ended up in Central America and met my grandmother, which is where my last name comes from. So that sort of sense of being Pan-American, like all American of all the Americas, is definitely always been really present to me, and what reality is, or what home is, or even what language is and what language can do are constantly being sort of questioned and reshifted. And I think that's definitely part of the way I look at things as a playwright. The first Nobel Prize winner of any of the Americas, including the US, was a Chilean woman, Gabriela Mistral, in the 40s, a poet. Then everybody knows Pablo Neruda. I remember going to Chile and even during the dictatorship and just seeing people would write poems on walls, or you go to the artisan fairs and there'll be strips of leather or copper with poems on them, or Imagine by John Lennon, or poems by Pablo Neruda, and all of these together, So there was this sense that words were very powerful and they're very present. I think so many of us, or our parents or our grandparents, came to this country, whether by choice or not, and had to sort of deal with what it meant to be in a place where maybe your home was, you had to leave home, and maybe you didn't want to leave home, but by necessity, either political necessity or economic necessity, you had to. For many people, there's that pull to, well, there's this part of myself and part of my life or part of my background that I had to leave behind to come here, and maybe they're still happy to be here, or maybe they wish they could go back and they can't. I think that a lot of the play is also about how kids are always trying to make sense of things, and even when parents are trying to protect them or they don't want to share something, the kids they'll make up their own story if you don't share their story, and sometimes the story they make up is scarier than the story that's real, Yeah, I think it has been really great to see how people from very, very different backgrounds have come up and said, this is my story. This is what I felt like with my parents. And even people who are not children of immigrants, who just said, this is something that I relate so much to, of trying to understand the world in this way. Or I was very involved in, politics and idealism, and I felt really crushed when that you know, couldn't happen the way I wanted it to, or, you know, there's very many ways that people connect to it, and that's been really amazing for me to see. It's really fun, and I learned so much about the play. Dreamy. We keep talking, I'm like, I don't want to leave. You know, it feels like a home, and it felt that way from the first time I came here for Crossing Borders. There's just such an effort to welcome you and to make you feel part of this community, and it's a really vibrant and very warm community. It's a theater that really cares about playwrights and really kind of honors what it is like to be a playwright, and how to, you know, making that journey safe for you and making that journey challenging for you in the best way, with a lot of respect and a lot of love, and it's very rare.